Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. Maybe we say a couple of things. We have 2 empty seats here, which is one will stay empty, and one will hopefully get filled virtually.
Yeah.
So Louisa Klemmer unfortunately can't join us today because she's not well, and Ahmad couldn't make it over. So hopefully he can join us virtually. And if not, it'd be a discussion between the 2 of us.
Yes.
Well,
and all of you.
Exactly. So I would like to really invite you to ask questions in between and don't wait until we finish talking for 45 minutes, because that would make a much more lively session, I think. So please, whenever there's something that you would like to discuss, question, or know more about, don't hesitate to join. Good.
Great. Well, we just wanted to share some examples of the experiences that our 4 institutions have had over the last couple of years. And to start with, just to kind of set the context for how we got to where we are. In 2019, Susanne and I and Ahmad had participated in a Fulbright program on digitalization in higher ed. And we were here in Berlin, and after a couple of great conversations, we thought, here might be an opportunity for us at each of our 4 institutions to find ways to get our students engaged in other kinds of learning. We realize that all of our institutions have similar issues with students who may have opportunities to study abroad or to have an international experience, but for a variety of reasons are less likely to do it. So we felt that if we could find an easy way for a student to kind of step into that space in a little bit less threatening than moving to another country for 6 months to study at an institution, they might be more willing to continue to do a study abroad program or a full-time exchange program in the future. And so that was kind of the basis for it. The other part was that each of us, as we looked at our student populations, felt that there was opportunities for the students to learn more about globalization, the global economy, and just kind of, if you will say, in the most simplest terms, kind of broaden their horizons. I'm at an institution in Iowa State University. It is located smack dab in the middle of Iowa, which is right in the middle of the U.S. It is very rural. It is not, and not highly populated, and we have the largest portion of our students are either from Iowa or are from some of the surrounding states. And so we have about 30,000 students at our institution. So, and across that kind of a range of experience that the students have. So that was kind of the initial beginning of when we were thinking about doing this virtual exchange opportunity.
And maybe we should also discuss a little bit the other 3 institutions involved. So there's Harz University, where Louisa Klemmer is from, and the University of Applied Science Harz has quite a lot of similarities to Iowa State. It's also bang in the middle of the country. There's not much around it in terms of population, and it's a lot smaller, of course, than Iowa State, but also has a very local student set. Not many people in Germany think, oh, I might go and study at Harz University, unless they live next door. So that's quite a similarity, and I'm from the Hochschule Ruhr-West. That's a University of Applied Science in the middle of the Ruhr area, which is a very industrial area, for those of you who don't know Germany. So it's an old coal mining, steel industry area, which is still undergoing the change from a sort of heavy industry towards a more knowledge-based industry region, which is quite similar to the Detroit area where Wayne State University is situated, where Ahmad is from. So we found there's also some similarities in our surroundings, and we could make interesting connections and see interesting differences. And I think another reason that we got together in the first place, and I think is also quite important for the success we had, is that we liked each other. You know, we wanted to do something together, you know, because we liked each other, and then we found something that we could do together. And I do think that's, you know, not to be dismissed.
I agree.
Factor.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that then has led into how the relationships have developed on our individual campuses and the partnerships that we've created from the German institutions with the American institutions. You know, we worked hard to bring the groups together and the faculty. We were just joking about this the other day. We, you know, we're very gung-ho on thinking, oh, well, we have this great idea. We know people will want to do it. But I think what happened is we created a space. We identified faculty who were interested, and then kind of got them in a virtual room together, and then really tried to get out of the way and let them be able to take off with their ideas.
Yeah, so our aim was therefore, you know, getting these virtual exchanges started, but making, you know, we had from the beginning this idea that we want to have long-term, you know, relationships. We didn't want to have a one-off course here or a one-off course there, but we really wanted to have long-term relationships. And I don't know, we said up front, so all four of us are within the university leadership, which is part of this initial program, which was for university leadership. So we were looking very much from the top down, you know, from our position into the organization. Yeah. So what has happened so far is the outcome of what we've done is we've already had 12 virtual exchange courses that happened between the summer of 2020, I guess, and now. We reached over 300 students with these courses, and about 20 teachers were involved from these 4 organizations. We had a virtual exchange, but we also managed to get some funding for having a mutual visit. So we had a big conference in Detroit where the German partners and the American partners, we all met in Detroit and had a conference on virtual exchange. We took a lot of students with us, and the students were working there together. A lot of them, no, all of them, I think, had worked before online together. So I think we heard about this earlier as well today, that they connected really quickly because they knew each other already from their online classes, and they very quickly got in real deep discussions about the differences they were seeing in their learning environment, in their universities, in their cities, etc. There were quite a lot of students who, and I think this is also something that joins our universities, all of us have a relatively high number of first-generation students. So for us, it's about 50%. I think yours are a little similar.
Yeah, a little bit less than that, but yes.
So again, these are often students who are less likely to take part in academic exchanges. A number of students at our university, when they applied, didn't have a passport. Had to get a passport. They had never needed a passport before. So this is something that is really interesting. It really opened doors or minds. Let's put it that way.
Yep.
There are some things that are already now in planning. So our faculty is getting together from all 4 institutions and planning a summer school, which is also going to be mixed, blended. There will be some pre-summer school online classes, and then there'll be in-person classes at one of the institutions. And the idea is that it moves from institution to institution. There's student exchange MOUs that we've signed so that we can now, those whose appetite we've whetted enough that they would like to now, have a real, longer term exchange. We now have the opportunity to do that. And also the first talks are going on research collaboration between the faculty that are involved.
I think that's one of the things that has been so important, and in some of the sessions I've been in today, people have talked about the preparation for the people involved in these virtual exchanges. So, for example, the facilitators or the faculty. One of the things that we started doing early on when we first started bringing the faculty together in 2020, because that's really when we had the funding to get started, was to provide some different kinds of professional development for the faculty. So we wanted these interdisciplinary teams to be working on these, problem-based types of projects. We brought in some of the other faculty, actually from my institution, to lead us through some kind of design thinking exercises or some problem-based learning exercises where we all had to work together and make the image that shows how you make a piece of toast. Right? Everybody's made toast at some point in their life, but as an engineer, Susanne approaches it one way. As a horticulturist, I approach it a different way. We've got social scientists in our group, and so they're looking at it in yet a different way. And I think what we found was having them model that type of learning that they wanted their students to do was really important, giving them a framework and some tools so they could also see, oh, I don't have to come up with how to do this, just on my own. There's actually something that I can use that will help lead me through that. I think that has been helpful in giving our faculty the confidence to lead some of these different projects. And I think the other piece that will be helpful is most all of the faculty who are continuing to do these different exchanges that we have going on right now have participated in that. So although they may have gone through a different education system in Germany or the US, or we have some of our faculty who are from China as well, they all now have a common language as well that they can use from a pedagogical standpoint when they start teaching the students, both regardless of what type of a project they're doing online. So I think that's, it takes more time up front, but it does two things. I think it gives them confidence in their skills in order to do it, and it also builds the socialization and allows them to build those personal relationships too. I think that's been helpful.
Yeah, we started, and you can see a little picture on the left. We started, our original idea had been to start with a conference, get all the interested teachers together, because what we'd experienced was, if you meet somebody that you like, you will find a way to work together. It's independent of subject or research or teaching interest. If you want to work with somebody, you will find a way. So we're thinking if you get a lot of people in a room, plenty of people will meet that like each other, and then they will go off. That was our theory. And then came Corona. And of course, all of a sudden, you couldn't have a conference and have everybody in a room. And so we had webinars that we set up. And we just, this is what you said about the gung-ho attitude, which was, if we invite people and tell them about our exciting ideas, I'm sure they're going to be excited too. Which they were, but we very quickly realized they also were very insecure, and this is what you were talking about. Yeah. I would really like to have somebody to talk, but I would need somebody who teaches, Mechanics 1 for civil engineers, and they will need in week 5 to be learning exactly this, otherwise our classes don't match. So this is the approach that the teachers initially came into the room.
Yes.
And so that's when we started to think, okay, they need some training. They need to be able to think, how can you get mechanical engineers together with horticulturists, or how can you get business administration, together with, informatics, and because that is the reality, we will never find the exact same module in the two institutions. So this is what we then did the next webinars. We try to do this, give them bits of training, give them some practical exercises that they can do, and we had great support from your educationalists,
right.
Really, that led us through that. And then we had the first couple of people that said, oh, I think we could try that. Yeah. And they didn't have a whole module that they did together. What they had is they had 2 touch points in their modules. So they taught their modules independent of each other, and at 2 points in the semester they met. for a specific reason. And from there, it grew. And then the next time, they went and talked in this webinar to their other colleagues. This is what we've done. And this was really interesting. And this was really difficult. And we really didn't think about this last week. There was the Blue Science module, and they didn't think about the time change. Yeah, the time, when the clocks went in Germany 2 weeks before they went in America.
Yes.
So, the Americans didn't come to class. They came an hour later, the Germans were almost finished by then. So these are interesting things that also come at the side. And by talking, we did a lot of collegial exchange. Once a month we brought everybody together into a webinar, or only for an hour.
Yep.
But they talked to each other, and that really got the. I think, formed a little community. Even though they never seen each other live, they still started to build a community of practitioners. And people went there every month, even though they never got involved in an actual project, because they'd never found a partner. And they still would come. Eventually, they know they will find a partner.
Yeah. I think the thing that was really helpful was that first partnership between a faculty member at Wayne State and then a faculty member at Ruhr West. And it was, they were willing to, to step out into that space of uncertainty and not knowing how it's going to go. And it was low stakes for the students, so it wasn't like their entire grade was riding on it. But they learned so much from that, and in sharing that back with the group, it was immediately after that we then had probably 3 other pairs that decided, oh yeah, we can do this. I don't want to be the first one to try something, but I'll be the second or the third. I think the other thing that it was probably a little bit freeing for the faculty is realizing it didn't have to be a whole module. It didn't have to be the entire set of assessments that the students will end up doing in order to earn a grade. And it's not prescriptive in what they need to be doing. And I think that has helped them think about different ways that they can integrate at least the concept of doing this virtual exchange into their classes. And you can see there's the pictures down here on the bottom and then up at the top. That's when we had the faculties together, either when they came when the German faculty came to the US, or this summer, we brought faculty from Iowa State and Wayne State and went to both Ruhr West and to Hartz. And it was just like what we noticed from the students when they had already seen each other online and had those kind of initial breakout conversations. As soon as we got people together, there was no need to do any ice breaking or warm up. It was hard to get everybody's attention to come back to take care of the business we needed to. So if this is something you're interested in doing, I can't underestimate, or I can't overestimate how important that is. And I think in a time when we're all pressed for time and it's such a precious commodity, we overlook that relationship building, and I think it's just foundational to the longer term success.
Yeah, and of course, us being the leaders, if we invite our colleagues to a webinar, they're more likely to be open to coming. I think that's definitely something. But also, I think they also at the same time know the support they were getting. And to be honest, there was no financial incentives for them. We did get a grant, a DAAD grant, and we were able to fund a couple of hours of coaching, pedagogical coaching, which I think 2 or 3 people took advantage of. And one teacher got, I think, some help from a student worker for a few hours a week. But there was not much financial incentive, but they knew that they still knew they had our support,
right?
And they could. And there's a number of matchings we did where teachers would come up to me and say, "Oh, I would really like to do something with someone in this field," and then I would ring up Anne-Marie or Ahmad and say, "Do you have somebody doing something in this field?" And then they would go into their faculty and say, "Would you not like to work?" And so we did really, manual matchmaking, as it were. But that worked,
it did.
didn't it? That really, and then from there on, it's like a snowball effect
Yes.
down. You know, you just need the initial ones, and then it sort of carries on going. We did also, like I say, it was some part of it was DAAD funded, and we did some evaluation of the different projects that we've done, and we brought some of the evaluation results. So we questioned both the students and the teachers and the leadership. Oh, not we questioned, we had them questioned. You know, somebody else did it. And I say we, I mean somebody else. So, of course, these are self-assessments of the students. So the students did feel that they improved their communication competencies and also increased confidence working in a virtual setting, although obviously that was at the same time as COVID was happening. So, you know, we started, I think the first class started in the summer of 2020.
Yep.
So they were obviously not only learning this in our course, you know, you have to be fair on this one. But of course, for the German students, they didn't really before have any English language teaching or learning settings in our university, and I think also Harz did not have much English learning settings. So I think a lot of the appropriate communication from the students' perspective was also in that, you know, all of a sudden I'm talking a different language.
And I think for the U.S. students, it was developing a sense of understanding that they have their colleagues who are speaking to them not in their native language, and understanding that they needed to speak slower. They needed to not use as much, you know, jargon and slang like they do. I mean, it's bad enough in American language, and then you throw in the college student on top of it. And so they did talk about that. I talked to some of the students, and they thought that was really interesting to them because they had never had that type of an experience before. So I think there was really some value in that. And then just this week, I visited with some of the students at Ruhr West who were just finishing up the Blue Science project with a group of 12 students from here and another 12 students from Iowa State. And so they were working on related to cybersecurity and that type of a thing. And listening to those students talk, they really talked about what we call the soft skills, and the fact that, you know, one young man said, you know, I've talked about before that I can work in a group, but now I can say very clearly that I can work in a group and can give some examples of what that would look like. And then the teaching assistant, I thought this was really powerful. He had completed the class last year as a student, and then this year he was helping kind of conduct the sessions online. And in this program, the students take a lot of ownership in what they do and how they deliver it. And this young man said that, you know, he said he had applied for an internship between the time he finished the class as a student and before he started doing the tutoring role. And he spoke very clearly about that on his application, that he had developed this group working skills, that he had developed these international, you know, collaborations and this type of thing. And he said that when he was doing his internship, that the employer had noted that and, you know, acknowledged that to him. So he really felt that was very important. So, I mean, when the students are able to self-reflect on that, I think that's incredibly powerful for them as learners.
Yeah. And we also see that, and I think we saw that today before in another talk, you know, 90% would participate again. So even though it was, you know, for the American students often a very early morning class, for the German students often a very late evening class, even though, you know, the language difficulties and all of that, and the having to arrange each other, I don't think it was not always very easy, but they still benefited and felt the benefit and could reflect on that benefit. So,
and I would just say, and I think that's similar to what you were talking about, even though there were some issues with the experiences the students had, in general, they were still very positive about it and felt that they would want to participate in it again. So it would be so interesting to know what it is, what that underlying piece is that continues to motivate the students. You know, I think oftentimes we think, oh, it has to be this perfectly orchestrated, you know, well-developed experience. And I think sometimes we forget that sometimes they don't mind if it's a little bit messy. You know, as long as there's some guardrails around it, they do okay. I think we get in our own way sometimes. Yeah.
That's probably true. Yeah.
So I think the other information that we gathered as part of the research project was from the teachers, because obviously we wanted to know what they thought, how they felt the experience was. You know, the kind of the themes that came out of it, the main reason that they participated was as an opportunity to provide students an alternative to a more traditional study abroad experience, and the chance to do some internationalizing of their curriculum. Of our faculty who are participating, a couple of them are international faculty members themselves, and so they really see the value of doing that. So I thought that was really interesting. The other question or the other information that they shared was the experience during the lectures. They felt that there was a lot of benefit from working with the international students. And the thing that they also took away was the opportunity to work with their international colleagues. So these are people that are not necessarily in their discipline, that they wouldn't run into at an international conference on, you know, dress design or something like that. But now they have this connection and an opportunity to work with these people in a really meaningful way that gets them excited. I think, again, it gets them, it's something that they like to do, and I think that can be such an important motivation. And you can see that was the last point on there, that collaboration with the teachers was really important. So I think that some of that, in my mind, as I think back about our trip here in May, you know, this was 8 months or so after we'd really started working in small groups. I think that really showed up in how the faculty interacted with each other. Like I said, there was never a quiet moment, and any time there was opportunity to engage, it just picked up right where they had left off, and so that was just fantastic.
Yeah, even though, and it followed on, isn't it? That
Yep.
This is the nice thing. So, you know, the funding has stopped from the DAAD, and still the courses are being developed, and new lecturers are getting on board and creating new courses, and the sort of the energy is staying high. And even though, you know, doing virtual exchange is always extra work for the teachers, you know, it doesn't, you know, it's always more effort. You know, you have to even just arranging semester times is awkward.
Yeah.
You know, and then you might not have the flexibility on the timetabling as you would like to have from your institution, and et cetera. So, you know, and you have to adjust, you know, you have to talk to your colleagues and work out and adjust the curriculum or the projects, develop these projects that the students can do. And so it's a lot of extra work, and still they get so much energy out of this collaboration that they are happy to invest this extra time.
And I think that kind of shows up in this kind of next stage that we're working towards, which is a summer school. I mean, you can imagine 4 different institutions that are on 4 different time schedules, different amounts of time that account for a credit. And then what's the topic that they're going to do? So the group has continued to work through that. I think we've gotten to a really good point, but they're going to be using some of the UN sustainability goals as the framework for this year, with the idea that there's everybody who's been involved in the project has something that they can contribute. And then maybe continuing to use that. Maybe the focus this year, I think, is going to be more towards energy. Next year, depending upon where it's going to be hosted, it may have a slightly different focus. But the fact that they've been able to and willing to continue to put in that additional time, they're clearly getting some intrinsic motivation, I think, from it.
Got it quite clearly. Yeah, so I guess Ahmed's still not there, right?
No, okay.
Never mind.
All right.
Worth a try. Yeah, so we were thinking about what is it that what we did as leaders or as institutions that made this work so well. I think certainly in my institution, and I don't think you guys are so differently, you know, occasionally I have this great idea and I bring it into the institution and you hope that somebody will pick it up, you know, your seed, your wonderful seed for a beautiful plant will find some fertile soil and start growing. But you never really know if it comes off. You know, sometimes it doesn't, you know. Sometimes you have a wonderful idea and your institution doesn't believe it and then it sort of shrivels in the corner and, you know.
I love the horticultural example. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So, but this one has really, I mean, it's really turned into sort of, you know, Jack and the Beanstalk type of plant, you know. Yep. It just grows and grows and grows. And I do think that there are some factors that, you know, help if you want to do that. And especially for this virtual exchange, that we realized that the matching of faculty who want to work together. That's the biggest critical factor. And so we spent a lot of time, and we still spend a lot of time, and we do that personally. This is not outsourced to our international office. We do this personally, and we do that for a reason, because we realize that you need to know the people. So not always do I know everybody in my institution, but I know who I need to talk to, who knows. So I might go up to the dean of the faculty and say, you know, who do you think would be interested in working with these people? And so it becomes a very personal approach that does take some time, but it values the people, and it helps really making that connection. That together with the webinars where we really bring the people in together and again and again and again and again try and keep this group sticking together a bit. Because otherwise the daily constraints and the daily tasks and the, you know, the emails and the exams and the lecture preparation and all of that will mean that you lose the momentum as a teacher. You know, quite naturally, I think. And so, you know, every month we bring everybody back together and remind them, oh yeah, that was this really cool thing. I did want to do this. Okay, now I'm going to do it, you know. And then sometimes, yeah, for some people it took 3 weeks. And for some people it takes a year. But they will get there. And I think maybe that's the second point. We strongly believe it is a good thing and people will get there eventually. We don't force anybody. You know, there's no financial benefit attached to it joining, but there's a clear communication from us into our organizations that this is really cool.
I think the other piece that we found as we got a little further along in the project was having something that was online that people could come to when they had time. So not everybody was always able to make a webinar, so it's kind of ephemeral. But the mural board over on the far right, we set that up, and so people were able to post in something about themselves and then something about what they're looking to do or an interest that they might have. And that allowed people who weren't able to make it to some of the webinars a chance to still be able to get engaged and then do that kind of follow-up afterwards. We were a little bit slow probably to getting that in place, but I think once we got it in place, people just really quickly added their information in there, and I think it's been good. And now new people can come in, and it's like we've got a repository of where they can put that information and who they can find out that's already at least expressed some level of interest in it.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there's, I think, a lot of indirect support, you know, that I think we're giving. So making the things that the teachers do visible within the organization. So that they feel that it's appreciated, the extra effort. giving them a stage, if you will, to present their findings within the organizations or within the webinar. So every time we have a webinar, we ask one of the teachers who've done something to share a little bit what they've learned, or what they've done, or what they would like to do, just to give them a bit of a stage. Professors like a stage generally. So speaking from experience.
So I think that the other piece that continues to keep people involved is at least one of the things I'm doing at Iowa State is a pretty regular reach out to the faculty. Just, hey, how are things going? And nothing big. I mean, I'm not involved in any type of a significant personnel decision that they're going to be, having in front of them. But I think just from my office, from our provost's office, knowing that somebody is aware of what they're doing, and I think acknowledging, to Susanne's point, the extra work that this takes for them to do, I think is important. I think where we'll continue to see growth is as they start to explore different research opportunities, not only in their discipline, but as they do the research on this type of learning and this pedagogy and the impact on the students. At the meeting I had with the 2 instructors from Rural West and the students, that was one of the things they were talking about is the publication, the research paper that they want to do on that. And I just got an email before we, this morning from our institutional review board that said, yes, you can go ahead and collect the data on the human subjects, and so you can ask the students some questions now. So we know that that'll be something that'll be coming, which in our system then becomes really important to keep the faculty involved, because now they'll have a scholarly output that they can use as part of their promotion and tenure. So, the intrinsic motivation gets you so far, but in our reward structure, at some point, we need to have those other pieces too.
Yeah. Absolutely. And of course, there is some structural support needed. You obviously have to have the opportunity to, use video conferencing. Okay, everybody does that now, but what platform do you use for material? Yeah. This is often a barrier, because the American students can't enroll into our learning platform because they're not our students, and our students can't enroll in your. Yeah. So, to give some support to that, everybody doesn't have to reinvent their own. That's also, I think, an important issue, or allowing, using different conference tools. I mean, the Americans use Zoom and we use WebEx, and how does that work? And are we allowed to use Zoom, or are we not? These are the sort of questions that are in teachers' heads, and you don't really want to leave the teachers on their own with that. I think this is something that the institution needs to provide, and to make there's enough work left in the pedagogical design that teachers have to do themselves. But at the same time, also there, I think the support that Bill gave, Rob gave to your staff, and also our e-learning team and our didactics team that support the teachers in designing good virtual exchange classes, or ask, help with questions, or how do I get the group going if they're slow to go, etc., to get some ideas on that, a bit of help with those basic tools of aiding communication, etc. These are also structural support that really help making the road as smooth as possible for the staff. And yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's working so well that now, like we said earlier, the group is run off and is planning a summer school, and that they're doing that all by themselves. And then just occasionally, it is good if they come up with, we've decided we would like to use these 2 weeks because we talked about our 4 institutions, and these 2 weeks work for all of us. It's good that they then know that we can say, yeah, if that's what you think, then that's what you can do. Yeah. And we don't start questioning everything again, or trying to put all sorts of weird formal barriers in place that you could think about.
And I think that then we can think creatively about, within our own system, how can we make that work? I mean, it's not ideal for any one institution, but you know, within the right rules, we can be creative in how we can bring some things together. And I think that's also a place where having senior level leadership involved has been really helpful, because we know the system well enough, and we also know kind of where their opportunities might be to make things happen. Yeah. And I think the last slide we have is the four of us this summer after we had the signing ceremony. So we've got institutional agreements between each institution, and then we have a consortial level agreement between all four of the institutions, which allows us to set up the exchange and the things that we had talked about. So Louisa is there on the far left, and then Ahmad is there standing next to me. So.
It's a wonderful German expression, by the way. Have I told you this before? Der Hahn im Korb, the cock in the basket. This is a single man surrounded by women.
There we go. That's great for Ahmad. So those were really the main things that we wanted to share with you, and we are certainly would love to hear your ideas, your questions. You know, this is just our experience from where we sit within our institutions. So would be more than interested in hearing questions or concerns or comments.
And we need the microphone because of the YouTube.
Hi, many thanks for your presentation. Found very, very interesting. My name is Annabelle. I'm coming from Darmstadt University of Applied Science, and I am actually working on building call in my institution. And I've got one question, but this is maybe a bit practitioner level, but I want to know if these 12 classes you mentioned, you've been giving credit for that, I suppose, each institution. I mean, that, you know, there were the students that were enrolled to. Is there any way on degree to see that these courses were actually virtual exchange classes? Because you mentioned sometimes they were not even a full module, only part module. Anywhere that the students could show, yes, of course, I did some virtual exchange.
So in all of the courses we did before this semester, the logic was always each course is held at the home institution. So we have two courses, and they're rooted in their home institution's curriculum, etc. And then they sort of meet. But each home institution is sort of head over their own course. They do their own assessment, and so that way you have no problems with the fact that the Americans have to pay and the Germans don't have to pay, and we have 6 credits and they have maybe 4 credits. So if the German course has more credits than the American course, the Germans have to do some stuff that the Americans don't have to do, etc. So you can have it very flexible. And we had a mix. Sometimes we had a situation where the German students got credit and the American students didn't. We realized that was not super beneficial. Yep. I think Jeff was talking about that he struggled to keep the students engaged because this is the same as you were talking, intrinsic motivation will take you so far in a system that's based on extrinsic motivation. If that really, the currency in higher education is not learning. It's credits. So, unfortunately. Yes. But that's the way at the moment the system is, and to change the system within one module is really difficult. So to get the, like what you say, to get it signed or noticeable for the degree, what we did, for example, if there was a certain amount of virtual exchange involved, we have little certificates we give to the students separate to their degrees. So if they partake, they get a little certificate to say that these courses were virtual exchange and you actively participated. The other option, of course, would be to think about how you can include it in the diploma supplement.
That was exactly my question, if you already did or not.
We
so officially, the ECTS they have heard in virtual exchange was German ECTS. They were not international heard. It was
because we earned them in our home institution because that was the easiest way to do it.
Yeah. Yes, that's definitively true, and that's what I was thinking. But we are also currently having goals, and a number of ECTS our students are supposed to earn outside of our institution.
Okay.
And this would be also nice if we could just,
but why? Okay, I mean, it's not my place to say this really, but I'll say it anyway. What is I would question the goal, because what is it you're trying to do with that goal? I mean, if the students are learning together in a virtual environment, who cares who gives the credits?
Don't get me wrong, that's a goal which has been set by the Ministry of Education. We are having a budget from. Don't get me wrong here. I
thought there was a rule that was set within your university.
No.
There's no point in questioning the ministry. I take your point. Yeah.
I would say from our institution, we don't have a way, and because it's only a portion of the class, we have an experiential learning, or we have different kinds of designations that a course could have, but unless it becomes like 50% of the grading is associated with that, then they won't be able to have that acknowledged. However, I will say that in our current group that's finishing up with our honor students with the Blue Science, one of the things that the instructors are having the students do is their last assignment will be, as a reflection, to write about what they learned, and then how they anticipate they would apply it to their future career. But I think one of the other things I heard them talk about, I'm not sure, I've not seen it yet, but is also to write the 2-sentence summary that you're going to put in your cover letter to be able to explain to a potential employer what you took away from it. And to me, getting a student to think about that, and with a little bit of guidance from the instructor to provide some input, I think that will be helpful.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
I think that's one of the things that we're not doing enough yet, is getting the students to reflect on their experience. I think they are taking that on board for the summer school. So part of the summer school, the idea of the summer school is that it will be the length of time for all of the students to make it a module that they can then use in their course. In their program. Yeah. And I think part of the assessment will be that the students will reflect on their experience. But really, I think we should try and get it, especially after what we learned today and yesterday, we should try and get it into much more of the virtual exchange experiences, even the shorter term ones.
Yeah, I think just having that built in is going to be really important.
Yeah. So let's see if that seed grows in our department.
Other questions?
Hi, thank you very much. I'm from the University of Potsdam, and I have a question regarding the management processes of the corporation. So you mentioned that you will, based on your knowledge of the higher education system within the universities as well, talk to the lecturers to see whether they are interested. And sometimes we get also ideas and inputs from the professors themselves. If they've heard about the corporation, they would say, well, I would like to do a course. And what would you do with the ideas within of the management level? Would you have a steering committee, talk about or exchange the ideas regularly? Or do you have a platform for matching of the lectures or something like that? So I'm very curious how it works.
I think it works with less of a process. But so this does happen, people hear, that, these people, these are doing really cool things, and, I want to, wow, you, for example, the electrical engineer that cooperated with Wayne State.
Right.
They came up to me and said, I want to. And how can I get involved? I've always been wanting to, get involved with an American university. How can I get involved? And so so I said, okay, what do you need? What sort of partner do you need? And then I went to Anne-Marie and Ahmad and said, yeah, I've got this colleague that really wants to do something in this field. And then Anne-Marie and Ahmad went to their deans of electrical engineering, and Ahmed was lucky and found somebody that was interested in cooperating. And some colleagues, it takes a little bit longer. You know, you don't necessarily find somebody. And then we have that platform where we also, oh, sorry, that was the wrong direction. Up there. We have this Miro board. We started with a DAAD platform, but that was felt to be too cumbersome by the teachers. And Miro is so simple. You know, you can just drop anything there. You know, it is very, very easy. And so we will also send them there and say, put your profile there, have a look who's there. And then we combine that with a personal, and I think most people that got together either got together through the webinars or through us connecting them. Yep. But also I think there was people that looked at the profile and said, oh, I would like to work with this person, and they connected each other via email. So maybe it's depending on the people. You know, some people prefer it this way and some people prefer go through us. So but it's not very structured, you know. It's sort of, it's a little bit like what you said about the different means of communications. You know, there's some people you contact via WhatsApp, and you know, with other people you ring, and the other people you write an email.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah.
One last question, I would say.
Hi, I hope this isn't too tricky a question. So it sounds as if you're developing a bit more of a long-term relationship. A lot of these projects end up being a bit ephemeral. And I'm wondering, have you reached out to your local communities to sort of widen the connection at all? So I'm thinking, you know, like there's twinning programs between Germany and places in America. Have you thought about extending out the relationship in some way to beyond the university connection?
Yeah, one of the things that we have talked about, and we just haven't gotten to that level yet, is maybe not quite the program that you're talking about. I think we would call that the Sister Cities program, yes, maybe? Yeah. Yep. But is to make a connection into industry. And so, you know, how do we have the type of a project that a student are working on from Germany and the US, and then with one of our global partners. So for example, John Deere is big in Iowa and it's big in Germany. And could we find a way that we actually have the students working on some type of an authentic project that the industry has? We feel two things that can come out of it. One of it is these international connections for the students to the industry, you know, and maybe selfishly hoping that the industry would provide some funding to help bring the students together. So, but we do think that's one of the kind of lower level down on our bullet list of things we'd like to see move forward.
And we did have the first conversations when we were. Was that in Detroit when we went to this company outreach place?
Oh no, that was at Iowa State. At our research park.
Yeah, so we did have that first sort of conversation. It didn't catch fire. Let's put it that way. So yeah, we maybe we haven't quite found the right approach, but it is actually more. We're looking more at companies in the first place. I think maybe cities is quite a big step, but this also, you know, relates back a little bit to the question we had on Wednesday night. You know, how do you get that whole kind of third mission involved in the international experience? And I think it depends a lot on the projects that you do. You could imagine projects where it makes more, it's more easy. For example. Simone, one of the projects her students always do, they learn social media marketing, and so they will always get some company sponsor who gives the students a task to develop a campaign for something, and that could be something that you could get into the international. I don't think they've done that yet. directly, but you could see that there's ways you could do that relatively easily, getting companies involved. But we haven't quite managed to find the right handle on that somehow. Maybe with the summer school. Yeah,
well, that's what I was thinking around.
results.
Yep, and as it relates to some of the sustainability initiatives and some of that, there may be some connections that some municipalities may be interested
Also
in.
municipalities, yeah, right, yeah. Very good point, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone, for the questions and the reactions, and thank you very much. I'm very happy that I could see Mr. Ezzeddine in the last picture. So